Now, the best practices for reopening, we've got a few other pointers. Designate a point person, HR management, and one person basically to take on these duties, making sure the checklists are done, the site-specific plans are done, everything's being posted, everything's being shared with employees and things like that. And then one person for questions that come up, and we'll be talking about too. On the next slide, we're getting a lot of questions about, what's a business do for a customer that's not abiding by social distancing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there should be one point person to deal with all of that if an employee has a question. And then the social distancing guidelines, check the local jurisdiction. If there's no local guidance, create your own and borrow from other counties. See what's out there. A lot of great resources out there. And then develop the hygiene policies and deal with certain things. And it's different for different industries. I was on a webinar yesterday for the California Restaurant Association. There's a great discussion about having kickers to open doors so the customer is not always touching the door handle and things like that. So think that through. We're seeing a lot of restaurants putting 2 different pen cases out. So when an employee has to sign a credit card receipt, that they take one from the clean one and then put it in the dirty, and then those dirty ones are cleaned and put back into the clean pen holder. So, be creative about it. And I think that's part of the reason, though, that the state is leaving this open to a lot of different, they're not having strict guidelines or checklists that you have to fill out. They're leaving it open to let the business owners develop and see what comes out of it. So there is some flexibility here. And I think we should, give the governor and the state some credit for that too, that it's not this one size fits all mandate for everybody. So I think it's going to vary a lot by industry to industry and employer to employer within each industry too. So, the masks are the new normal and reasonable accommodations. There's some issues that have been coming up. We've been getting questions about that. And Mike, I'll turn it over to you quickly about some of the reasonable accommodations we've been seeing about dealing with on that front too.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Sure. With the mask, really, if your locality requires masks, like LA County, then obviously you need to provide masks for your employees. But even in localities that don't explicitly require masks, you want to consider whether it makes sense to have a policy to require your employees to have a mask or require your customers to have a mask. And I think you can just expect that, as Anthony said, it's going to be the new normal for some period of time. As with anything, though, you are going to want to be attentive to potential needs to accommodate employees who may have religious or medical issues that prevent them from using a mask or will require some sort of different mask. Keep in mind also that if your locality requires it, or if you have a policy that requires your employees to have masks, it's probably your obligation to provide those masks or to compensate the employees for the expense of providing their own mask. Obviously, if you provide a mask and they have a preference for a different one, then that's fine. But if you're going to require them to go out and get a mask and use for work, you need to pay them for that. You may want to keep in mind that wearing masks for a long period of time could be kind of stressful or difficult. Are you going to have some place that employees can go, or some policy where employees can go and get a break, get some breathing room, as it were, maybe on a rest break or a meal period? But you'll want to think about that as, it could be kind of cumbersome and difficult to wear a mask for long stretches. Unfortunately, in this day and age, I think we've all seen that there's been an increase in confrontations particularly with customers who are, the store is requiring you to wear a mask and the customer has an objection, and frequently will tape these. You want to keep in mind and be ready with a plan for what if that situation comes to your store. If you require a mask, what are you going to do if there's a customer who refuses to wear a mask and is going to be belligerent and tape it and cause a scene? I would recommend you want to train your employees to be quicker about calling law enforcement if they get into such a situation, because I think it'd be better for to have that person have that argument with law enforcement rather than with your employees and your customers. But it's something to think about now so that you'll know what to do at the time. And then, as with masks, the other thing that is going to be the new normal is, increased cleaning and sanitation. It's just going to have to be more thorough, more frequent. You want to think about getting hand sanitizer and other cleaning supplies so that you have access to that, so that you're not in a pinch trying to acquire it last minute. And you want to keep constant with CDC, state, and local guidelines on these cleaning requirements.